Hello, everyone. Welcome to another life story coming to you on LifeStories Worldwide, where we bring you stories on social media, all types of stories where people from hurts and struggles and pain, but also stories of joy and happiness and fulfillment, all types of stories from all over the world and going all over the world. We welcome especially those who are watching in Ukraine, and the people on Touch Trust who can't see us, but they can listen to us and hear the stories. If you want to know more, you can contact us on our website, lifestoriesworldwide.com. There you'll find all sorts of information about the app that you can download from Apple or Android, or the Bible app that you can download to use for your own personal use. Today, we bring a story from Rotherham in the South Yorkshire, where Steve and Emma Coulam are going to share their story. Just to remind you, you can phone us on +44 794 354 0287 if you need help, if you want to ask any questions about the work we do. And just to remind you also, these stories can be viewed over and over again on YouTube. And we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and pass on this message to your friends that they also can hear these amazing stories that we have each week. But now it's time to hand over to Steve and Emma, who are going to share their story. Thank you, Steve and Emma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Start at the beginning.
At the beginning, start right back to my childhood, and then maybe you talk about your childhood. So I grew up in Rotherham. I got a brother who's 2 years younger than me. My mum and dad. My dad was deaf. My mum was hearing, and they had a bit of a problematic relationship as we were younger. It was quite a violent relationship. And we would witness my dad beat my mum when he would drink. And we would witness my mum, who was quite feisty, would go back at my dad, and it'd be back and forth. And it impacted his lives quite a lot when we was younger to witness these things. So when I was about 6, my mum and dad divorced. And I really didn't want that to happen, because regardless of all this, they were my mum and dad, and I loved them to pieces. They were my world. So that hit quite hard when I was young. And I just remember standing at times in my front room crying and screaming that I want my daddy. And my mum then became obviously a single mum. She was working full time and trying to manage 2 children. A wage wouldn't stretch enough to pay the mortgage and the bills and all these things. So at times there was no food in the cupboards. So she would go without to try and make sure we could eat and things. Clothes were just not fitting us. We was outgrowing them, and shoes and so forth. And they would share custody with us. So with my mum, there was a lot more discipline and rules, whereas with my dad, we basically could do anything we wanted. There was no rules, no boundaries and everything. So we'd go back and forth from my mum and dad's through the week, and then they'd share the weekends. My dad lived with his mum as well, my nan. So I grew up, and I was a bit of a rebellious child from a young age because of the divorce, I think, and just having no boundaries at my dad's. So I would get up to things that probably normal young children shouldn't be doing and wouldn't do. But it was kind of living like a double life as well, because when I was at home with my mum, I wouldn't do the things I would while I was with my dad. When I was young, about 8 years old, I was drinking alcohol already. Somebody introduced me to that when I was young, and also porn. I know it's just going straight in there. And this impacted my life massively. So, me and my brother would witness this, like I said, from a young age, and I became sexually active from quite a young age as well. And at the age of 10, my mum met my stepdad, who I didn't accept really and get on with very well. And, I love my mum, I love my stepdad, and I love my dad. And you see that, the things that he'd struggled with and gone through in his childhood, he then brought into his adult life and then into our lives. So it was very hard to live with him. And again, me being quite rebellious anyway, I wouldn't let him tell me what I was doing and stuff. So we used to come together and have a few scuffles and fights and things. And I would get kicked out of my mum's home and have to go and live then with my dad. So in my teenage years, I was meeting other people that was a lot older than me, because I had, like I said, no boundaries and I could do as I pleased, and getting drunk and doing certain drugs and things, and was on gas at the age of about 13. And my mum found out. And I remember I denied it, but I remember my mum talking to me about how serious this can really, it can kill you, basically, just doing that once, and all the damage it can leave behind. And that really scared me. It really put a lot of fear into me. So I came off that, stopped doing that. But I was still meeting a lot of older boys and men and things, smoking weed, drinking, and being sexually active and things. So then about the age of 14, 15, I met a boy from my local school who I kind of settled down with, and started to become a bit better behaved. But it was also a place I used to spend a lot of time at his mum's house and things. And I didn't want to be at home with my mum and my stepdad because we just clashed so much. So I'd spend as much time as I could at his home with his family. And we got engaged when I was 16, and I left home when I was 17, because I just wanted to get away. And I was suffering with depression as well from like the age of 14, and battling, because I've got a lot of baggage already in my life, a lot of things that I'd regretted I'd done, but a lot of hate and anger towards everybody and everything. And I was just very rebellious. So I just left and moved into my flat with this partner. And I stayed there till I was about 18, and things just weren't working out anymore. So I left and moved back in with my dad. At this time, his mum, my nana, had died. And again, just going about doing the things that I shouldn't be doing, going down dark routes, from like 14, going back to 14 as well, 15, I was going out nightclubbing in the nightclubs and stuff, and dancing on podiums and
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all.
Doing all these crazy things as a teenager. And at times, my dad was there with me, and he would take me out to these places because I wanted to go. He basically let me do whatever I wanted. So I moved back in at 18, and just spiraling out of control a bit, suffering with depression very badly. And then finally got my own flat, my own place. And one night I went out, and I bumped into Stephen, who we actually knew each other from childhood anyway, at school, didn't we?
Yeah. I'll go into a bit of my backstory there and tell you about me. As I was younger, when I was younger, I think I was 3.5. My dad passed away. He had a massive stroke. He was quite older. Both my mum and dad were older when they had me. My mum was 36, and there was a big age gap between my mum and dad. I think my dad were 54 when I was born, so there were a 15-year gap between my mum and dad. But as for my brother and sister, that sort of more affected them later on in life than it did me, because I was so young. The only person I can remember is my stepdad, which he has been a good dad to me, really. So we've had his ups and downs, but he's always been there for me. And then growing up from sort of 4 and 5, my mum and dad sort of moved into pubs, and they ran pubs and stuff. So I grew up around beer a lot, and grew up around a sort of a rough environment, because there were rough pubs, like there were drugs going on in these pubs and all sorts of stuff. So you saw a lot. Both my brother and sister got addicted to heroin at a young age. That, like, seeing that impact, like the stuff that went on with my mum, especially my mum, how that affected her and everything, like that was quite hard through childhood. But As I said though, but that's what sort of sent my sister and my brother off, because they were at an older age when his dad passed away, so it more affected them. And then going on into sort of 14, 15, because I grew up in a pub, I was drinking beer, a lot of beer for my age. Like, I can remember one at night, me and my cousin, we done like 18 pints between us, and he had to have his stomach pumped and all sorts of stuff. And we were just, because we were around this and brought up around this, and just seeing it as though it were normal, like it seems to be in this country. And so I was growing up around drinking everything, and my dad was sort of from the attitude of like Jack the Lad type, so never taught me true values on like being in a relationship or anything like that. It was more like go and do what you want, sow your oats into the world. And so I was a bit of a Jack the Lad from being like sort of 16 onwards, and I was going out drinking 4 nights a week, playing rugby, doing stupid stuff with rugby lads. I was just a complete idiot, really reckless. Used to drive at stupid miles an hour on motorbikes through rush hour traffic at like, I can remember looking down at the clock. I was coming from Manchester to Rotherham once, and it was like rush hour traffic 5 o'clock, and I'm doing 140 mile an hour on motorway, weaving between cars. I thought I was invincible, and like, because I played rugby as well at a quite high level, so I would just thought I was God's gift to women and everything, and just not who I saw myself being when I was younger, when I grew up. And then I I met her last, moved to St Helens, and I had a daughter with her, but that relationship were toxic. And it's like, but when you sort of in world, and you sort of, that's just how things are, and you split up and you don't know any difference. So, and everyone, I was young when it happened. I think I was 18 when she got caught pregnant, and baby was born when I was 19, and it were hard in them times. We had his ups and downs, his differences, and then one at night from that, I moved to St Helens away from my family, which were quite hard at time as well, like being away from everyone. When that relationship broke down, and then I stayed up there to try and see my daughter, it was so hard, because I was on my own with nobody in a complete alienated town. That were hard. And then one at nights, I come down to go out with my mates on a night out, and that's when I bumped into Emma. And
we, like I said, we knew each other from childhood, went to school together, and we dated a little bit while I was at school, but then we split up. But you know, as we was out and about, we used to know each other's partners and things, and kind of hang out together at times. So we know each other quite well. But then obviously I left that partner, and Stephen moved to Liverpool. And then, you know, we'd not seen each other since, or even thought about each other at all, and just was getting on with our own lives, doing our own thing. We bumped into each other in a nightclub, didn't we? And just give each other a big hug, and it was like, wow, we've not seen you for so long, you know, we need to catch up, what you've been doing. Anyway, later on that week, was it that you ended up coming around to mine, and I'd been talking to my mum, you know, why can't I find a man that really loves me for who I am and has no interest in anybody else, but he's just so in love with me. And I want him to be tall, dark and handsome. I just added that bit in, and lo and behold, that week I bumped into Stephen, and you know, this was the man of my dreams, really. And no, you was, and were and are, and so we started dating and seeing each other. But then there was times when I would try and push him away and run off and do my own thing and not want to stick around and things, and struggling with suicidal thoughts and stuff. And you know, I didn't mention, but when I was 16, I tried to take my own life through an overdose. So then this stuff kind of followed me back into like my older teenage years, and tried to hang myself when I was actually with Stephen. So I was really struggling and battling in them and times still. But Stephen seemed to be different from other men. He was really understanding, and he would really sympathize and listen to me instead of saying I was crazy. I needed to go and get help, or, you know, I can't deal with this. He stuck around through thick and thin and went through absolutely everything with me to help me, and never run away, never left me.
coming. Jesus is
Life Stories.
Me, it was me trying to push him away and run, and Steve was always there, and I'm so thankful that he didn't just give up and he fought through it all, because we wouldn't be where we are now if he'd not. Then I got pregnant at 8
let me just jump in here. Just going back to that time, obviously Emma suffered massively with depression, and it were really bad. But from one day to the next, she could be fine one minute, and then all of a sudden something had come in her mind, and then that's it. It were full on deep depression, and it's hard even living with someone that's like that. And I'm not trying to get sympathy or anything, because she had it way worse than I did with thoughts and everything. But it's even hard trying to live in that situation, because you think they constantly don't like you and they don't love you, and they don't. Maybe this relationship ain't right, and I'm just holding on for just me, selfish reasons and stuff like that, and that's not. You never want that in a relationship. And it were always like, it were hard to get pushed away and then pulled back and pushed away and pulled back, and it were hard in them times. But there were always something inside me that knew I had to stay. I'd never been like this with a woman before, you see. I'd always been, I left on my terms sort of thing, if you know. Like I said, I were a bit of a jack the lad, so I weren't really, I'd never loved anybody before. So it was like always my terms and what I wanted to do sort of thing. Until I met Emma.
And then I ended up getting pregnant at 21 with our first child. And my mum at times, she was worried, considering what I'd be like as a mum, because of how I'd been in my life up until then. I'm sure Stephen was worried at times, and people were concerned. But and I struggled through the pregnancy with the hormones and the emotions and things. But as soon as Ella was born, she changed my world. She changed my life. I now had somebody else to focus on. I now had a purpose, and it wasn't going to be about me and my stuff and baggage or whatever else had gone on, my past or my future. It was going to be about my daughter, and I had to be strong for her. So she gave me a new life, a new lease on life, and a somebody else to focus on other than myself and the mess I was in. And she just changed me, and things were amazing and great. And then when I was,
it were like, because I had so many worries. Obviously, she suffered with depression and everything, and a little baby coming in, and she just changed into she just chucked all her attention and her focus into little one, into our Ella.
Yeah.
And she just become an unbelievable mum as well, and that's never been it's been the strongest point really all the way through, and it's. She as kids could read from such young ages and be able to, before they even started nursery, they could add up and read and write and all this sort of stuff, because it were devotion she spent with him. But I believe now, looking back, she did that. Obviously she loved the kids and wanted to do that anyway, but it just buried a lot of that stuff as well then for a time, didn't it?
And I also made a promise to myself that even though I love my mum and dad, and I had a great mum and dad, regardless of everything that happened, my children weren't going to experience the things I experienced growing up. My children were not going to go through these things and witness them. That was my promise, that I was not going to allow that or let that happen. And to kind of learn from mistakes, my own parents' mistakes, my mistakes, kind of learn from these things and not hand them down and pass them down any longer.
We both saw the damage it can do by a broken family. Like we're not the right father figure, because my brother and sister were older, so we saw that. I saw them go off rails because they wouldn't accept my stepdad, and they wouldn't accept that whatsoever. And my dad died obviously as well. And as I was younger, as a younger age, I looked at him as a dad, because that's all I can ever remember. I can't remember my real dad, so it didn't have that impact on me. But I saw it, so it was something that we wanted to make work, didn't we? All the way through. And I was working then as I was like, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and I was working as a supervisor in around that time, weren't I? So.
And things, finally things were going great. Things were better. Things were on the up. And we was doing everything that, you know, you're meant to do in life, settle down, have a family, get a job and look after your family. And things were going great. And then at 25, I got pregnant again with my second child, Olivia. And again, things were still going great and amazing. And
but with all this, like the costs, and we were very worldly, so we're having holidays every year, and I were having to work a lot of overtime to cover everything that we were doing. And in this time when you haven't got money, when you're living this way, you start getting credit and finance and debt and
doing illegal things,
stuff, to get a bit of extra money and doing stuff and
provide, or do what you want to do, or think you should be doing as a family, or think, oh, I should be having this and doing this. So
because you look at everyone else around you that's like, well, you look to people you look at your parents that have got a nicer home and stuff, but they didn't when we were younger and kids, but now they're grown up and they don't have kids trashing house. They can have these things, and you'd look to them things, and them things would be like, oh, I want that. But then it's so easy in this day and age to just go out and get it and pay later, and then you start running these things up, and before you know it.
So, and then I'd say after a couple of years of having my second daughter, I started to get really depressed again not long after. I was just unhappy and selfish really at the time, and, you know, feeling like I'd not attained much in life and not got anywhere really that I wanted in my mind to get. And I was just starting to go down again in depression and spiral, but at the same time keeping a brave face on for my children, and trying to battle these things. And Stephen was out working long hours and stuff so that we could afford a better living and life, and I ended up being unfaithful to Stephen. Sorry, I get upset. So but this person that I was unfaithful with turned out to be heavily into witchcraft and black magic and these sort of things. And I know a lot of people might not believe that or understand that or grasp that. But not only them things, he was quite a bad person, you know. And I was trying to keep that from Stephen.
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all.